The sun had only begun to rise when the quiet lake in northern Arizona reflected its first light. Morning mist floated above the surface like soft white smoke, drifting slowly as the warmth of the day tried to push it away. Birds were only starting their songs, breaking the stillness of the beautiful dawn. At that hour, hardly anyone passed by the lake, and that was exactly why Elias Ward, a calm and private cowboy, chose that route for his morning ride. Elias lived alone on a small ranch several miles away from town. He was a man of routine: wake up early, feed his horse Copper, drink a simple cup of coffee, and then ride to check the far parts of his land. The lake marked the end of his usual path. He always stopped there so Copper could drink, and so he could rest under the cottonwood trees. Elias often said the lake was the one peaceful place where the world did not disturb him. But on this particular morning, that peace was about to change in a way he could never have expected, as he rode slowly down the narrow dirt trail. Copper's hooves pressed softly into the ground, leaving clear prints in the wet soil. Elias lifted his hat slightly to block the brightening sun and guided his horse toward the water. A warm breeze brushed over the land, carrying the scent of wild grass and fresh water. Nothing seemed out of place. Everything felt normal. When they reached the water's edge, Copper dipped his head to drink. Elias loosened the reins and let him enjoy the cool water. He stretched his arms, took a deep breath, and prepared to sit for a few quiet minutes. But then, faintly at first, so faint that he wondered if he imagined it, he heard something unusual. A voice? A frightened voice? A desperate voice. "Please, help me." Elias's body froze. He turned sharply in the direction of the sound, scanning the tall reeds along the edge of the lake. The voice sounded soft, almost trembling, like someone trying not to cry. He heard it again, louder this time. "Cowboy, please, help me. They took my clothes." The words struck him like lightning. He had never heard such fear near the lake. Without wasting a moment, he guided Copper closer to the reeds, but he stopped several feet back so he wouldn't frighten whoever was calling. "Who's there?" Elias asked gently. His voice was calm, steady, the kind of tone meant to reassure someone in distress. "I'm not here to cause harm. Tell me where you are." For a moment, silence returned. Then, a head appeared between the reeds, the head of a young Apache woman. Her long dark hair clung to her shoulders, wet from the lake. She looked embarrassed, frightened, and unsure if she could trust him. Only her face was visible. She kept the rest of her body hidden behind the tall reeds and shallow water. She spoke again, her voice shaking. "Please, please don't come closer." Elias raised both hands to show he meant no harm. "I won't come closer unless you want me to," he said softly. "Tell me what happened." The woman swallowed hard, her eyes wet with tears she was trying to control. They took my clothes while I was washing them by the water. They ran off with everything I had. I can't come out like this. I don't know what to do." Elias felt a tightness in his chest, not anger at her, but anger that anyone would do such a cruel thing. He kept his voice steady and respectful. "You're safe now," he promised. "No one else is here. I can help you, if you allow me." The woman nodded slowly, still half hiding. "They were young men from another settlement. They scared me, and laughed when I begged them to stop. I had no time to chase them. Her voice broke. "It's all right," Elias said quickly. "You don't need to explain more right now." He removed his long coat, a thick brown, weather-worn coat he always wore during chilly mornings. He held it up so she could see. "Would you like me to place this by the reeds? You can use it to cover yourself." For a long moment, she said nothing, but he could see her eyes soften, trusting him just a little. "Yes," she whispered. "Please." Elias stepped off Copper, careful to keep his back turned respectfully. He walked to a point near the reeds, placed the coat on a dry rock, and stepped back again. "It's here," he said. "You can take your time." The woman moved slowly, reaching one arm out from between the reeds. Her hand trembled as she grabbed the coat and pulled it toward herself. Elias kept his eyes on Copper, giving her privacy while she wrapped the coat tightly around her. After a minute, she stepped out from behind the reeds, still holding the coat close around her body. But now finally able to stand on solid ground, her face was tired. and her eyes told stories of fear and humiliation. Yet even in that moment, she carried a quiet strength, a dignity that had not been taken from her. Elias spoke gently. "You're safe now, ma'am." The woman looked at him carefully before giving a small nod. "Thank you." Her voice was still soft, but no longer trembling. "My name is Nieli. I'm Elias Ward," he replied. "I'm from the ranch down the trail." "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, just shaken." "Do you know the men who did this?" he asked carefully, not wanting to push her too fast. "I've seen them before," she said. "They come near our lands sometimes. They try to act like they are brave, but they only bully the weak. Today they found me alone. I thought they would leave me if I ignored them, but they didn't." Elias sighed quietly. "I'm sorry you went through that. It wasn't right." Nieli looked down at the soil under her feet. Her toes were still wet from the lake. She shivered slightly, even though the sun had begun to warm the morning air. Elias noticed and said, "My horse is strong. He can carry both of us. I can take you somewhere safe. My ranch isn't far." Nieli hesitated. She looked around the lake as if expecting the men to jump out from behind the trees. She took a deep breath and said, "I don't want to stay here. Not alone." "You don't have to," Elias replied gently. "I'll help you until you feel safe." She looked at him again, studying him with cautious eyes. Elias stood quietly, letting her make her own decision. At last, she nodded. "Okay, I trust you." Elias guided Copper forward and helped her up carefully, making sure she stayed fully covered with the coat. Once she was settled, he climbed up behind her, but kept a respectful distance, holding the reins loosely so she would feel comfortable. Copper began walking slowly along the lakeside path. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Nieli's breathing was uneven at first, but it calmed as the rhythm of Copper's footsteps continued. Elias kept his eyes on the trail and listened to the sounds of nature, the soft rustling of leaves, the distant cry of a hawk overhead, and the quiet hum of the wind. He wanted Nieli to feel no pressure to talk, but after a while, she spoke on her own. "I was traveling to see my aunt who lives near the mountains," she began quietly. "I was carrying food, clothes, and a few things she asked for. When those men came, they tried to talk to me. I ignored them. Then they laughed and grabbed my things. I ran into the water so they couldn't pull me, but they took everything on the ground." Elias listened carefully, not interrupting. "I waited until they were gone," she continued, "but I had nothing to wear. I didn't know who might come. And then I saw you." Elias nodded softly. "I'm glad I arrived when I did." Nieli turned slightly to look at him. "You didn't ask questions? You didn't stare? You just helped me." Her voice had a note of surprise. "Most people would walk away from someone like me." Elias shook his head slowly. "Someone in trouble is someone who deserves help," he said simply. Nieli looked forward again, holding the coat closer. Her eyes softened. The fear in them was slowly fading. The trail curved gently along the lake, then entered a line of tall pine trees. As the canopy shaded them, the morning air grew cooler. Elias took another coat from the saddle pack and held it out. "You can use this for your shoulders," he said. "It will keep you warm." Nieli accepted it with a grateful nod. "Thank you." As they rode deeper into the woods, Elias kept talking in a calm and steady tone, telling her stories about Copper, about the storms that passed through the area last year, and about the wild horses he sometimes saw near the canyon. His words weren't meant to impress. They were meant to comfort. Nieli listened quietly, feeling the fear in her chest ease with each step the horse took. After nearly an hour, the trees opened, revealing the wide grassland that stretched toward Elias's ranch. The small wooden house stood near a fenced area with Copper's stable nearby. Smoke rose gently from the chimney, left from the small fire Elias had started before his morning ride. "We're almost there," Elias said. Nieli gazed at the ranch with tired eyes. She seemed relieved, but also nervous. "Are you sure it's okay if I stay for a while?" she asked softly. "You can stay as long as you need," Elias replied. "No one will bother you here." Copper stopped near the porch, and Elias helped her down gently. Nieli stepped onto the soft dirt ground, still holding the coat around herself. Elias guided her toward the house. Inside, the ranch was simple: wooden walls, a stone fireplace, a small kitchen, and a clean extra room Elias rarely used. "You can use this room," he said. "No one else lives here." Nayeli stepped inside slowly. The room had a small bed, a blanket, and a window facing the open field. She breathed deeply, finally feeling safe. "Elias," she said, turning toward him. "Thank you for everything." He nodded respectfully. "Rest first. When you're ready, you can tell me what you want to do next." Nayeli sat on the bed, still wrapped in his coat. For the first time since the lake, she allowed herself to breathe freely. She knew she was safe, not because she had been lucky, but because she had. The sun had climbed higher in the sky by the time Nayeli woke in the small room Elias had offered her. The morning light poured softly through the window, casting golden lines across the wooden floor. For the first time since the incident at the lake, she felt calm. Her hands still held tightly to the coat Elias had given her. A quiet reminder that someone cared, that someone had come to her rescue. She rose carefully from the bed, smoothing the folds of the coat, and looked around the room. It was simple, clean, and safe. She had never felt so protected in her life. Outside, Elias was already busy with chores. He had fed Copper and was stacking firewood near the barn. When he saw Nayeli at the window, he nodded warmly. "Morning," he said. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes," Nayeli replied softly. "Thank you." She hesitated. "For giving me shelter." "For everything." Elias smiled faintly. "You're welcome. You needed help, and that's what neighbors do. Come, I'll make some breakfast." Nayeli followed him to the kitchen. Elias worked quickly, cooking eggs and warming bread over a small stove. He moved with the calm efficiency of a man who had done the same tasks every morning for years. Nayeli watched him, noticing small details, the way his hands were strong but careful, the quiet focus in his eyes, and the calm patience in his voice when he asked her if she wanted coffee or water. They ate together, the room filled with the quiet sounds of morning, the soft clatter of utensils, the occasional chirp of a bird outside, and the distant rustle of the wind through the trees. The atmosphere was peaceful, a sharp contrast to the fear and humiliation Nayeli had experienced the day before. She felt a small warmth growing inside her, a sense of hope she had thought lost. After breakfast, Elias spoke gently. "Nayeli, you don't need to stay here if you don't want to, but the lake isn't safe for you yet. Those men might still be around." Nayeli nodded, her hands folded in front of her. "I know, I don't want to hide, but I don't want to be in danger either. I need someone to stand with me." Elias's eyes met hers. He understood immediately. "Then I'll stand with you. But first, we need to figure out what they did and make sure it doesn't happen again. I'll go to the sheriff. You can come with me if you want." She hesitated for a moment. I think I should. I want to see that they take responsibility. I don't want anyone else to go through this." "Then we'll go together," Elias said firmly. After packing a small bag with the few belongings Nayeli had left, they mounted Copper and rode toward the small town a few miles away. The path took them through open plains, where the wind moved freely, tugging at Nayeli's coat and Elise's hat. She felt the open air on her face, a comforting reminder that freedom still existed even after the shame she had endured. Elias rode slowly beside her, speaking softly about the land around them. He pointed to distant hills where wild deer often grazed and told a story about a thunderstorm that had forced him to shelter Copper under an old oak tree. Nayeli listened quietly, letting the rhythm of the ride calm her mind. For the first time, she realized that she could feel safe again, even in a world that had hurt her. When they reached the town, streets were already busy, with people going about their daily routines. Elias led Nayeli to the sheriff's office, a small building with wooden shutters and a sign swinging gently in the morning breeze. Inside, the sheriff, a middle-aged man named Sheriff Dalton, looked up from his desk. His face was serious but not unkind. "Elias Ward," the sheriff said, raising an eyebrow. "And who is this with you?" "This is Nayeli," Elias replied. She's an Apache woman. Some men near the lake took her clothes yesterday. I brought her here so she can report it properly. Sheriff's expression darkened. That's serious. Sit down, both of you. Tell me everything. Nayeli took a deep breath and began. She described the events at the lake carefully, how she had been washing her clothes, how the young men had approached her, and how they had taken her belongings. She spoke clearly, without exaggeration, but her words carried the weight of fear and humiliation. She also explained that the men were known troublemakers, often causing problems for other families in the region. Sheriff Dalton listened quietly, occasionally nodding. He asked a few questions: the direction the men had gone, what they looked like, and if she recognized them. Nayeli answered truthfully, providing as much detail as she could remember. Elias stood by her side the entire time, never interrupting, never speaking over her. His presence gave her confidence. She realized that, for the first time in weeks, she wasn't alone. There was someone who believed her, who respected her, who was willing to help her face those who had wronged her. After taking notes, the sheriff leaned back in his chair. "We'll find them," he said firmly, "and they'll answer for what they did. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Nayeli." Elias nodded in agreement. It's important they understand their actions have consequences. The sheriff then asked Nayeli if she wanted to confront the men publicly or remain anonymous. She took a deep breath and said, "I want them to apologize in front of the people. I don't want anyone else to go through this. I want them to know it's wrong." The sheriff studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, we'll do it." Next, Elias and the sheriff went to identify the young men. With Nayeli's descriptions, they found them near a small barn where they were hiding some of her belongings. The men looked surprised and ashamed when confronted. They tried to downplay the incident at first, but Nayeli stood tall, speaking clearly about what they had done and how it had made her feel. Elias remained beside her, silent but firm, showing them that she was not alone. Finally, the men admitted their wrongdoing. They returned the clothes and apologized in front of Nayeli, though the apology felt forced. The sheriff warned them that if such behavior continued, there would be serious consequences. Elias did not speak to the men, but his eyes conveyed the same message: never harm her again. Afterward, Nayeli thanked Elias quietly. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. "Most people would have ignored me." Elias shook his head gently. "It's what anyone should do," he said. "Help when someone needs it." The ride back to the ranch was calmer than the morning. Nayeli felt lighter. She had faced her fear, confronted those who had wronged her, and survived. With Elias beside her, she began to feel a small sense of hope for the future. As they neared the ranch, Elias spoke gently. "You don't have to rush. Take your time here. We can figure out the next step when you're ready." Nayeli nodded. I think I want to go to my aunt. She lives near the mountains. I need to finish my journey," Elias agreed. "Then we'll go together. I'll make sure you reach her safely." That evening, they settled back at the ranch. Nayeli cleaned herself up, folded the coat Elias had given her, and placed it neatly on the chair. She felt a strange mix of relief and nervous anticipation. She was grateful for the day's events, but knew that the journey to her aunt's home would require courage. Yet she no longer felt the paralyzing fear that had gripped her at the lake. Elias prepared a simple supper: fresh bread, eggs, and a small piece of cheese. They ate quietly, the room filled with the calm sounds of evening, the crackle of the fire, the occasional call of a distant owl, and the wind whispering outside. Elias spoke softly about the land, the animals, and the stories he had learned from his father. Nayeli listened, feeling safe and cared for, slowly building trust with the man who had rescued her. After supper, Nayeli finally spoke about her aunt. "She has been waiting for me for months. I was bringing supplies, food, and some clothes for her. I had hoped to travel alone, quietly. But today I learned that not all people are kind." Elias nodded, understanding. "Some people make mistakes, but there are also good people in the world. You've seen both now." She looked at him, eyes shining with the last bit of sunlight filtering through the window. "I'm grateful I met one of the good ones," she said softly. Elias smiled faintly, not out of pride, but out of relief that she felt safe. "You deserve kindness, Nayeli," he said. "Everyone does." As the night grew darker, the ranch became quiet. Nayeli lay in bed, thinking of the lake, the stolen clothes, and the frightening morning. But she also thought of Elias, Copper, and the warmth of the small ranch. For the first time, she felt hope. She knew that the journey ahead would not be easy. But she also knew that she would not face it alone. Outside, Elias sat by the fire, thinking of the day's events. He had rescued someone from harm, but more than that, he had restored a small piece of hope to a frightened woman. He knew the next steps. Helping her reach her aunt safely would test both of them. But he also knew one thing for certain. He would not let fear or cruelty harm her again. The night settled over the ranch, calm and quiet. The stars appeared above, glittering in the vast Arizona sky. Nayeli slept, finally at peace, wrapped in the warmth of the coat and the knowledge that she had found a protector. And Elias, watching over the land he loved, knew that their story was only beginning. Tomorrow, he would guide her through the forests and plains to her aunt's home. And together, they would face whatever challenges awaited them, building trust, courage, and hope along the way. The next morning, the ranch was quiet but alive with a gentle anticipation. Sunlight filtered through the cottonwood trees, spilling gold onto the wooden porch and warming the stable where Copper waited. Nayeli had packed a small bundle of supplies, some food, water, and the few belongings she had left. She had wrapped the coat Elias had given her around her shoulders, a reminder of the safety and kindness she had found. Elias stood by the fence, adjusting his hat and checking Copper's saddle. The horse shifted its weight, snorting softly, sensing the quiet excitement of the journey ahead. Nayeli approached, a mixture of nervousness and determination in her eyes. "Are you ready?" Elias asked, his voice calm but steady. "Yes," Nayeli replied softly. "I think I'm ready." She glanced toward the mountains in the distance. "I want to reach my aunt's home today. I can't delay any longer." Elias nodded. "Then let's go. I'll guide you and make sure nothing slows us down." He held out his hand to help her onto Copper. With careful steps, Nayeli mounted the horse, adjusting the coat around her shoulders. Elias swung onto the saddle behind her, keeping a respectful distance. Letting her take the lead while remaining close enough to guide, Copper and offer support if needed, the first stretch of the journey led them across open plains. The wind swept across the tall grass, tugging at Nayeli's hair and the folds of her coat. The morning air smelled of wildflowers and fresh earth, carrying with it a sense of freedom and possibility. Nayeli breathed deeply, feeling the tension from the past days slowly lift. She realized that the world, though sometimes cruel, also held moments of kindness and courage, and she had just experienced one. Elias spoke softly as they rode. "Those men at the lake, they will not trouble you again." Sheriff Dalton made sure of that. "But more importantly, you stood up for yourself. That took courage." Nayeli glanced at him, eyes wide. "I couldn't have done it without you. I felt safe because you were there. You never treated me like I was weak." Her voice carried a quiet gratitude. "I didn't think anyone would care." Elias shook his head. "Everyone deserves care. You needed help, and I couldn't just leave you. That's all." For a long time, they rode in silence, letting the rhythm of Copper's hooves calm their minds. The plains gradually gave way to a gentle rise of hills, dotted with small shrubs and wildflowers. Birds flitted from branch to branch, and a hawk circled high above, gliding effortlessly on the morning air. Nayeli began to notice the small wonders of the land she had been too frightened to see before. After several hours, they reached the edge of a small forest that marked the beginning of the path toward her aunt's home. The trees cast long shadows, and the air smelled of pine and damp earth. Elias slowed Copper's pace, guiding the horse carefully through the uneven terrain. "Stay close to me," he instructed gently. "The path is narrow, and there are rocks hidden under the leaves. Copper will be fine, but we need to be careful." Nayeli nodded, gripping the saddle tightly. The forest felt quiet and protective, a natural barrier between them and the dangers of the open land. For the first time, she felt a sense of control over her journey. Not because the path was safe, but because she had someone she trusted guiding her. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, they stopped near a small stream to rest. Ilias helped Nayeli down from Copper, and she knelt to drink from the cool water. He handed her a small piece of bread from his bag, and she ate slowly, savoring the taste and the moment of calm. "Tomorrow, we will reach your aunt's home," Elias said, his voice low and steady. "We'll take it slow. Make sure you're safe every step of the way." Nayeli smiled faintly. "Thank you for staying with me. I know this journey could have been frightening, but with you here, it doesn't feel so bad." Ilias nodded. "You're brave, Nayeli. You faced your fear at the lake. Today, we continue that journey together." They rested until the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Then they mounted Copper again, moving cautiously through the trees as the light began to fade. The forest gradually opened onto a wide valley where the distant mountains rose majestically against the sky. The sight of the mountains filled Nayeli with hope. She had dreamed of reaching her aunt's home for so long, and now she was finally close as they rode. They talked quietly about small things, the weather, the animals they saw along the way, and stories of the land Elias knew so well. Nayeli began to feel comfortable speaking again, her laughter small but genuine. She realized that the fear and shame she had felt at the lake were not permanent. They could be replaced with trust, hope, and even joy. By the time they reached the foothills of the mountains, the sky was painted with shades of orange and pink. Elias slowed Copper's pace, allowing Nayeli to take in the view. The valley stretched below, dotted with trees and small clearings. In the distance, a small cabin sat near a stream, smoke curling from its chimney. Nahel's heart leapt. "That's her home," she whispered. "That's where my aunt waits." Elias nodded. "We're almost there. Let's make sure the approach is safe." He guided Copper along a careful path, keeping the horse steady and quiet. Nayeli felt her pulse quicken with anticipation. She had traveled alone for so long, and now the end of her journey was in sight. As they approached the cabin, Nayeli saw movement outside. A woman stood near the doorway, waving frantically. Nahel's heart swelled with relief and joy. She had never felt such happiness to see another familiar face. "Aunt Mara," she called, her voice trembling with excitement. Her aunt rushed forward, embracing Nayeli tightly. Tears streamed down her face as she held her niece close. "Oh, Nayeli, I was so worried. Are you safe? Did anyone hurt you?" Nayeli shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks as she clutched the coat Elias had given her. "I'm safe now. I had help." Elias stayed a few steps back, letting the reunion happen naturally. Nayeli turned to him and said softly, "This is the man who helped me. He guided me here, protected me, and made sure I was safe." Her aunt's eyes widened as she took in Elias. "You did all this for her?" she asked, disbelief and gratitude in her voice. Elias nodded modestly. "She needed help. I did what anyone should do." Aunt Mara stepped forward and shook Ilias's hand warmly. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me. You've protected my niece when she needed it most." Nayeli smiled, feeling a sense of safety she had not felt in years. The journey had been long, but she had made it, and she had not made it alone. Elias had stayed with her through fear, uncertainty, and danger. He had shown her the power of kindness and respect, and in doing so, had restored her hope in humanity. That evening, after a warm meal and quiet conversation, Nayeli sat near the window of her aunt's cabin. Watching the last light fade behind the mountains, Elias had offered to stay for the night, ensuring she settled safely. She wrapped the coat around her shoulders, feeling its warmth, both physical and emotional. "I don't know how to thank you," Nayeli said softly. Elias shook his head. "No thanks needed. Just take care of yourself, and remember that you're stronger than you realize. The world can be cruel, yes, but it can also be kind. Never forget that." Nayeli nodded, a small smile spreading across her face. "I won't forget." Before leaving the next morning, Elias gave Nayeli a small woven blanket from his ranch, a simple gift, but meaningful. "For the times you need warmth," he said, Keep it with you. Naeli took it gratefully. I will. And I'll always remember the coat, too. You gave me more than warmth that day. You gave me hope. Lias mounted Copper, ready to ride back to his ranch. Naeli stood at the cabin doorway, wrapped in the coat, watching him. Will you come visit? She asked softly. Elias smiled faintly. Maybe someday. But for now, your journey continues here. You're safe, Naeli. That's what matters most. As he rode away, the morning sun glinted off the mountains, casting a golden glow across the valley. Naeli watched him disappear into the distance, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. She had traveled through fear, uncertainty, and danger, and she had come out stronger on the other side. And she had learned something even more important. Kindness and courage could be found in the most unexpected places. And sometimes, they came in the form of a quiet, steady cowboy who simply chose to help. The story ended not with grand events, but with a quiet, lasting peace. Naeli was safe. Her aunt was there to care for her. And she had a story of hope to carry with her, a story of courage, trust, and the man who helped her find her way. The mountain stood tall and silent, witness to the journey of a brave young woman and the cowboy who had chosen to stand beside her when she needed it most. The lake, the plains, and the forests had tested her. But in the end, she had found her home, her safety, and a chance for a new beginning.